Hello guys, what is up? Bobgar here. Today for $10 deck, we're going to look at a $10, actually $3 deck in Standard that I like to call Bad Rares Ramp. I also call it Bounty of Sandwurms due to it having Bounty of Luxa and Sandwurm Convergence in it, which are two of my favorite cards from Amonkhet. Not two good cards, but two awesome cards. And there's definitely a distinction there. This is one of these decks that you play not because you think you're going to win a lot, but because you think it is going to be cool. Here I wanted to outline the high-level game plan of the deck without going into the cards yet. I'm going to go into the cards in a minute. The high-level game plan of the deck is we play some ramp early, like Servant of the Conduit or Naga Vitalist. This is turn 2 or so. Turn 1 is for chumps. Maybe we do something turn 1, maybe we don't. We do have a few 1-mana drops, but don't bother covering me here. They're not important. Turn 2 is where it's at. You got to ramp. Turn 3, off our Mana Dork plus land drop. We should get to Bounty to the Luxa or something like that. Technically, we could also get Hedron Archive, but that's not nearly as cool as Bounty to the Luxa. And then turn 4, who knows what we do turn 4? Turn 4 is a mystery turn. And then turn 5 is profit. Turn 5 is where we go, hey, we have this giant Sandwurm Convergence here, or if you like, one of my favorite things, Lay Claim. Lay Claim is good because we don't get to run good cards in our deck. Most other decks in the format have at least some good cards in them, which means Lay Claim usually means we get to take a good card from our opponent, which we are too poor to play ourselves. So that is the immaculate beauty of Lay Claim here on turn 5. We're going to play it. It's going to be awesome. We're going to take whatever they have, steal all their awesome $30 cards, and laugh. Alright, so that's slide 1. Let's look at some actual cards. So there's the ramp. Two of these guys I already saw, Servant of the Conduit and Naga Vitalist, are just both very good ramp creatures. We run 3 of both, so we run 6 total 2-mana ramp spells. We also run 2 Weaver of Currents at the 3-drop. Helps us ramp a little bit extra, but doesn't produce colored mana. Usually it's not a big deal to run as a 2 of. 3 mana is a little bit of an awkward spot to pay for it at, but it does help get us to some of our big expensive 8 mana threats. Getting to 8 mana without Bounty of the Luxa can be a little tricky, so it can be good for that. And then we have our non-creature ramp. So we're running 4 Spring to Mind. Spring to Mind is really good in the deck because puts a basic land into play, so it basically ramps you 1 land for 3 mana. In addition to ramping you 1 land for 3 mana, later in the game, you're gonna run out of stuff to do. Your opponent's gonna be killing all your neat cards. They're gonna be doing stuff to slow you down, and eventually you're just gonna be sitting on a pile of 1,000,000 mana, and you can just flashback Mind. It's a little bit like a bad version of Investigate or something. I mean, Spring to Mind is almost like put a land into play, investigate 2, but the investigate tokens cost 3 mana instead of 2, so it's not as good, but it's the same idea. You get an immediate advantage, which is pretty good, and you get a later game advantage, which is not as good, but it's alright and has a few synergies with the deck. For Bounty of Luxa, I love this card. I've loved this card since I read it. I was like, yes, this is the card that I want. It does my 2 favorite things in Magic: draw cards and produce mana. If I'm doing those 2 things, I am pretty happy. So basically it's a do-nothing enchantment. In a lot of ways it's not very good, but I love do-nothing enchantments. I'll play Honden decks all day, every day. Then Hedron Archive is just another ramp thing. I run 2 of them. I could see running more. It might be a mistake to only run 2. It ramps you for 2 mana. It doesn't die to removal. Both of those things are very good. And then in the late game, you can cash it in for 2 cards. So a little bit like Mind. It's like a ramp spell that later in you get to cash in. The only disadvantage is it doesn't thin your deck like Spring to Mind does, and it doesn't stay on the battlefield after you cash it in. So the advantage of cashing in Mind is that you don't lose the Spring effect that you've already done. The disadvantage, of course, is that Mind costs 6 mana to draw 2 cards, whereas Hedron Archive costs 2 mana. I guess effectively 4 mana because you're taking away your chance to use 2 mana that turn, but technically only 2 mana to draw 2 cards. Anyway, moving along. These are our primary payoff cards. I already talked to you about 2. Lay Claim is fabulous in budget decks because, like I said, you don't get to play the $30 cards, but your opponent does, and you get to lay claim your opponent's $30 card and be like, nope, that one's mine. And I don't know, I love doing that. Sandwurm Convergence, it just gives you so much value over time. It sucks against aggro, But if you can stabilize, getting a 5/5 out every turn beats a lot of decks. It doesn't beat all the decks. You know, obviously Marvel, if they spin and hit Ulamog, they can just exile it, but still very good. Honored Hydra I put in as a 3 of, partly just because I wanted something that was not quite as expensive as Sandwurm Convergence in case we don't hit the bounties with Luxa, so we don't spring all the way up to 7 mana on turn 5. And then also because of the trample. I think the trample is really effective. It's important for us to be able to push in damage, especially against Planeswalker heavy decks that run a fair amount of tokens. Like, what's the Nissa, whatever Nissa's name is. She produces 0/1 plant tokens, and we just go, nope, we're just going to stomp all over Nissa. Alright, those are the big payoff cards, and here's some secondary payoff cards. So we run 2 Oviya Pashiri Sage Lifecrafter. That name is hard to say. I like her a lot because we can put her down turn 1, and she's one of our only turn 1 plays. And later game, you're going to have a lot of creatures on the field with all your mana dorks and some of your big threats too, and all the Sandwurms you're creating, and you're just going to be able to create like 10/10 constructs with her second ability. And even if she's using her first ability, if your opponent's playing a control deck and keeping you down, her first ability still pumping out 1/1s is great. So yeah, and we're going to be so flooded with mana late game with between all of our ramp spells and Bounty of the Luxa and that stuff that we will be able to pretty regularly use her abilities. So I like her a lot. Keeps you in the game early, something just to play on the board. Sometimes you just have to chump with her and that's life, but later game she can turn into a big engine for you. I'm also running 2 Alter Ego. Alter Ego is just super hilarious when you play it late game. Like late claim, a lot of times your opponents are running better creatures than you and you can just copy them, but your version just has more +1/+1 counters and is bigger. You know, copying like Gear Hulks and things like that. A lot of times Hooded Hydra is a good target for it just because that has trample, so a lot of times late game you'll just be able to be like, I have a 15/15 trample, that's a copy of my Hooded Honored Hydra. So that's also very sweet. Anyway, I like the card a lot. I think it's underrated, although I understand why it's not good enough to be in the actual standard metagame, but I think for a Friday Night Magic deck it's probably underplayed, if anything. But clone effects are a little hard because somebody has to have something on the battlefield to have it do anything, right? So that's the disadvantage. We're also running 2 Rashmi Eternity's Crafter. I literally was like, what is the cheapest mythic in Kaladesh? And I was like, yeah, that's the one, and it's in the right colors. Let's do it. I was just like looking through all the mythics, like what are the cheap mythics I can find that are in standard. She's not like the best in the deck, but she's pretty cool if she doesn't get removed instantly. She's a card draw engine. She's going to draw you at least 1 card a turn pretty much. And I like the ability to play them instantly onto the battlefield. If you're playing Alter Ego X11, you're going to be able to play anything in your deck. If you're playing Sandwurm Convergence, you're going to play almost anything. You're going to be able to play almost anything you can hit with that too. So yeah, just super powerful. 2, 3 for 4 is obviously not a good rate, but I think her ability makes up for it, and she can be another engine card to help us keep drawing and keep casting, and that's what this deck likes to do: draw and cast and draw and cast. And then there's the other crap in our deck. 4 Attune with Aethers, that's pretty important to fix our mana, turn on our Naga Vitalists. 2 Censors. I honestly like this just because of the mind game of it. I'm not sure it's good in the deck, but if it's not good, you can always just cycle it for 1 anyway, which doesn't feel bad. And if you censor one of your opponent's important spells, or even one of their crappy spells, they will play around censor for the rest of the match. I kid you not, I've seen it happen. So you really only need 2. You just got to play 1 on them, and then they'll just assume you always have it. It's great. So you don't need to run a lot of them, just a couple to like screw with your opponent's head, make them think you're a counterspell deck. I don't know, I like it a lot. Commit Memory is a little weird. I like having a little bit of interaction. I think it's pretty good. I also really like the memory effect in the deck. We will be drawing so much that it's not super useful to us. The part I like about it more than that is, I think it can be good occasionally. There's sometimes we just need to draw something important and it's worth just Wheel of Fortuning, or if we know our opponent has something important, we can Wheel of Fortune. And also if we're about to mill, you can use it to save yourself. And we draw so many cards that I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but I think it's certainly a risk. So for that reason alone, I think Commit Memory deserves at least to be a 1 of, and I guess I decided to make it a 2 of. I think it's pretty good. And then that's the whole deck. So, oh no, I lied, there's lands. And so then lands. I'm so smart. We're running 11 forests, 7 islands, and a Blighted Cataract. Blighted Cataract, not super important for the deck. Just another way for us to draw cards. You rarely end up using it because we have so many other card draw methods, but I have had it occasionally be important in my practice matches, so It probably will be important again. And then you just, you don't need it. Between this 11 forests, 7 islands, and 4 attune with Aethers, you're going to mostly be able to get the lands you need. So it's 19 lands total, but it's functionally about 23. And then finally, this is the sideboard slide. Sideboard, pretty straightforward. Natural State, Clip Wings, Sender's Deliverance, Duskwatch Recruiter, Woodweaver's Puzzle-Ass, Cartouche's Strength, and Mouth to Feed. We're not running pretty much any of those. I have the wrong sideboard slide up right now, so I'm going to have to go change that and then re-record the sideboard slide. And finally, the sideboard, Ceremonious Rejection. 4 of those counter target colorless spells, so mostly for artifacts, but also for Eldrazi potentially and things like that. 1 mana just makes it super efficient in matchups where it's important. 3 Haze of Pollen. Haze of Pollen is just to prevent all combat damage that we dealt this turn, so it's a fog. I like it because it cycles if we don't need it, and if we do need it, we're probably in the aggro matchup, and it makes a lot of sense to put in. So if we need it, we need it, and if we don't, we can get rid of it. So perfect. Excellent for us. Probably the most important sideboard card for us is Negate. Negate is very good at stopping certain strategies, and especially good in control matchups. I find like we want to resolve a couple of our big threats, and if a lot of times we can just get to 10 mana and say, oh, we play Sandwurm Convergence and we still have 2 mana up to negate your counter spell or whatever. It's also good if the opponents are on Marvel or any of those good non-creature strategies. So it probably comes in the most matchups. Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, again, like Haze of Pollen, just to keep us in against aggro. Maybe I should just run more hazes. I don't actually know why I ran a split here, but I did. It gains you 6 life from 5 mana, or you can just gain 3 from 2, kind of split it up. Confirmed Suspicions is actually very good in the matches where I sideboarded it in, so I potentially should have ran more than one of these. It's also another bad rare, but you get to counter target spell and investigate 3 times, and it kind of puts you exactly where you want to be. It's a really expensive counter spell, but you get to cash in, clues off it later, and draw yourself back into more counter spells and just more stuff to do. So I find that very powerful. Confiscation Coup is also pretty good. I don't like it quite as much as Lay Claim, both because Lay Claim has cycling if you really need it, and because Lay Claim can target more things. I think Lay Claim can target anything actually, and Confiscation Coup only does artifacts and creatures, and it costs energy too, so to capture something big you would have to have already generated a bunch of energy, which the deck often does have 3 or 4 energy sitting around from Mana Dorks, but sometimes it doesn't, so sometimes you could just only get a thing of value maximum 4. So yeah, I like it, but not quite as much as Lay Claim, and I think it's better in aggressive matchups obviously than Lay Claim, so you might want to bring it in like slightly aggro-y matchups, like mid-range matchups, and take their kind of mid-range threats, like you can use it to steal a Tireless Tracker or something like that, so it can be pretty powerful. And yeah, that's the sideboard. So this is just the list of the deck and the prices. It's about $30 in paper, so super cheap even in paper, and $3 on Magic Online. You will lose a lot if you play this on Magic Online, I suspect, but I won, like, I don't know, 50% of my practice matches, so it's good enough to take wins off of other janky decks that you run into the practice lobbies, and occasionally you'll even beat a good deck with it. If the good deck stumbles a little bit and you get out of Sandwurm Convergence, you can take over the game pretty quickly. Turns out that's a good card. Sandwurm Convergence into, like, Lay Claim is pretty sweet. So yeah, and that's the deck. I'm going to go jump into a game real quick. I will see you guys in a minute. Hey guys, Bobgar here. I just really wanted to quickly say, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you enjoy my content in general and would like to see more of it, subscribe. I'll be coming out with more content in the future. And please leave me comments and let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, both in terms of production and in terms of my play and my deck building and all that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.